A Croatian veteran just sold over 500,000 concert tickets. Not a pop star, not a rapper. Some would say he's not even a global name. Just a man singing about his love for his country, God, and the people. Marko Perković, better known as Thompson, managed to break the world record for the largest ticketed concert in history. Almost 300,000 tickets sold in one night. But there is a small problem here. This artist is banned in multiple countries. His shows described not as concerts, but as military rallies. The atmosphere he creates on the stage is unlike anything you ever seen. He is a person who divided a whole nation. To some, he is a god, to others a fascist, a symbol of extremism that needs to be silenced, linked to various right-wing parties. This isn't just about music, it's a story of a man who went singing battle songs in the trenches for his fellow soldiers to fill stadiums with hundreds of thousands singing his battle anthems. He traded his rifle for a microphone and gave a voice to a country torn by war, fractured by politics, with its people scattered around the globe. Is this patriotism or mass propaganda disguised as music? The controversy escalated so far that he was even banned from performing in his own capital, the very city he once swore to protect, just like his country. He built a movement forged in blood, trauma, and identity. So what made this man more than a musician? Fear and silenced by the governments and the media outlets. Is this only patriotism that many don't understand, or is it perhaps propaganda to create something much more sinister? Ovo je priča o najkontraverznijem hrvatskom glazbeniku Marku Perkoviću Thompsonu. His life story doesn't seem like a story you would expect from a musician that is breaking world records. He wasn't born into a musical family, neither planted in the industry like most mainstream artists you will see nowadays. His humble beginning started in a small village called the same way as his breakthrough song Čavoglave, where he was born on October 27, 1966. Čavoglave is a village located in Croatia and at that time part of Yugoslavia. To some the face of evil, to others a paradise on earth. However you choose to look at it, it's a federation already beginning to crack. Marko's early years are marked by growing up without a father figure. He was away on business in Germany and came home only for Christmas and Easter. When he was 15 years old, he left his home village to go to Split, where he finished high school and became a waiter. For his living, he was working in a pizza place later. This is where his love for music began. After work, he would often organize small gatherings to sing and play, a simple, carefree time of unity. But this didn't last. As political tensions escalated, Yugoslavia began shifting from a strong united federation into a country torn by nationalism, fear, and division. By the early 90s, the federation collapsed into chaos, and Croatia, like much of the Balkans, plunged into a darkness so deep that its shadow still lingers today. It was a brutal, chaotic conflict that tore through the cities, villages, and families alike. Friends became enemies overnight. Borders were drawn in blood. Ideals collapsed under the weights of nationalism and fear. Today, many people, regardless of which side you ask, will tell you that this war was something that the region never needed. But at the time, nationalism was on rise and the fear was real. Marko was in fear for his family, friends, and also village. As many young and brave men, he stood up and decided to join the army. After the outbreak of the Homeland War in 1991, Marko joined the National Guard Corps, the early formation of what would become the Croatian army, serving the 142nd Drniš Brigade. He became known amongst his fellow soldiers for carrying an American-made Thompson submachine gun, a detail that earned him the nickname Thompson, which would later become even his stage name. His time in the military played a key role in shaping both his identity and the themes that would dominate his music until this very day. Now you might be wondering, why a Croatian soldier in 1991 is using a Thompson, a weapon used in the Second World War. You would think that this M1A1 variant of this weapon was long outdated by the modern standards, and you are completely right on this. In the early days of the Homeland War, Croatia barely had a functioning military. The people who stood up to fight, they weren't professional soldiers, they were volunteers, farmers, teenagers, or in the case of my father, even underage kids who wanted to give their lives for the country. Anyone brave enough to pick a gun and fight could join. Fighters used whatever they could get their hands on, hunting rifles, AKs, even leftover weapons from the Second World War. Perhaps they lacked proper weapons, but they had something far more powerful: brave hearts and an unbreakable will to defend their homeland at any cost. Thompson was just one of 1,000 soldiers like that, but he had something unique, a talent he chose to use to boost the morale of his fellow soldiers. With his voice and guitar, he wrote songs that echoed through the chaos of the battle and carried comfort in the silence of the night. And just like that, the legend is born, and the story of Marko Perković Thompson begins. His love, patriotism, and dedication to his homeland can be heard in songs like Čavoglave, the breakthrough song that jump-started his career, a raw, defiant battle anthem dedicated to defending his home from the Serbian forces. It wasn't polished, it wasn't subtle, it was call to arms. A rallying cry for survival, you can even say. The lyrics are about standing your ground, protecting your people, and pushing back against the enemy with faith and pride. But the song's most controversial moment comes right at the beginning, with the words "Za dom spremni," for the homeland ready. Now we need to pause this part of the story for a second, because if you're not from the Balkans, this part might sound confusing. When you hear the phrase "Za dom spremni," it sounds patriotic, but here is the thing, it's not just a slogan, but it was the official salute of the Ustaša, a fascist regime that ruled Croatia during the World War II under Nazi Germany. The Ustaša ran a puppet state called the NDH, the independent state of Croatia. Well, many of you are probably familiar with the camps they built in the 1930s and 40s in Germany. The same ones were also built in the NDH under the Ustaša regime, to get rid of Serbs, Roma, Jews, but also anti-fascist Croats. I also don't need to tell you all the horrible things the Germans had done there, but here is the thing, the German officers who decided to visit the NDH camps were disgusted at their brutality and what they did to people. They even developed special weapons for quickly getting rid of those unwanted, even making tournaments who would do more. With this quick history lesson out of the way, you can now see how this phrase is problematic and controversial. And even though Thompson says he's honoring the fallen Croatian soldiers, critics saying he's invoking something far darker. For some, Čavoglave is a patriotic anthem. For others, they don't hear national pride, they hear genocide, they hear fascism. You can always argue your thoughts about this, but this is how people are divided on this topic and Thompson in general. The song is also banned in multiple countries all over the world. This included a 3-year ban in the Schengen region in the early 2000s, which includes over 25 countries. But Thompson still opens up with his salute and sings this song. And you would be crazy if you think that the crowd doesn't salute him back, as he calls for home. By the time the war ended, Marko Perković was just a veteran, he was a symbol, and like all symbols, people saw in him whatever they wanted. As men were still picking up rifles in 1992, Thompson picked up the microphone and recorded his debut album called Moli Mala, released in 1992. After the defense of his village Čavoglave in 1992, Marko began organizing humanitarian concerts throughout Croatia, but in 1994, Marko wrote another famous song that cemented him in history. And it was a proof that he wasn't just a one-hit wonder. That song was Anica Kninska Kraljica, Anica, Queen of Knin. The song tells the story of a girl named Anica, referred to as Queen of Knin, who is seen as a symbol of Croatian pride and resilience. The tone of the song is militant combined with pride. with lyrics that openly reference the defeat of Serbian forces, retaking territory and burning Serbia into the ground. Now, here is the problem. Songs like Čavoglave and Anica weren't just battle anthems left behind in the history, written for a time that needed morale and unity, but decades later those same songs and the salutes that come with them are still performed with unapologetic pride in the name of Croatian homeland. And if you're somewhere in the middle, especially if you're not from the Balkans, then you have to judge for yourself how all of this is looking, and let me and other people know in the comment sections. But however you feel about it, parents brought their children to the shows, veterans stood shoulder to shoulder with teens who had never seen those dark times of Croatian history, but knew every word of his songs. To be perfectly clear, he also had songs about friendship, faith and love for his homeland, without any direct or subliminal political messages. Songs like Geni kameni, Moj dida I ja, Vjetar s dinare and E moj narode were powerful in different ways. These songs are about old men passing stories to their grandchildren, of people trying to survive, rebuild and hold on something bigger than themselves. They connected with listeners not through controversy, but through emotion. But nevertheless, he was a voice of generation, shaped by bloodshed, hard times, but also victory. No event in Croatia brings people together like when Thompson starts to sing. Not politics, not sports, not any other type of gathering. Even outside Croatia, his reach spread to Bosnian Croats, to Croatian diasporas in Germany, Canada or Australia. For millions, Thompson became a symbol of pride, resilience, and for some, purity of the nation. For the people who don't admire him, these aren't concerts, and they are not peaceful gatherings. It's a man named after a machine gun, leading a crowd that follows him without a question, like a division, not an audience. He is seen as a man promoting controversial salutes, racial purity, linked to far-right politics, and associated with very questionable ideologies. He had 2 shows scheduled in November of 2007 for New York City, which provoked protests from several Jewish groups, apparently linking him to groups which promoted neo-Nazism. In 2009, his concert in Lucerne, Switzerland was also cancelled after politicians called him a fascist. The Swiss security agency accused him once again of glorifying the Nazi-aligned Ustasha. He was banned from the Netherlands. Germany said no, Austria the same thing. Each time, it was the same story. Officials accused Thompson of spreading propaganda and hate. To critics, it looked less like a concert and more like a flashback to 1941. Some countries even cited hate speech laws, saying his shows posed a threat to public order and safety. International pressure made sure that Thompson didn't step on their soil. But the grass wasn't greener in his home country either. Videos and photos began circulating showing concert goers flashing and wearing t-shirts with banned symbols and chanting fascist slogans. This escalated so much that Thompson's songs were banned from Croatian radio and TV. Well, banned might be too strong of a word. It's more like he was quietly shelved. Broadcasters claimed there just wasn't a good time slot for that kind of music. At the events like Dancing with the Stars, Thompson was simply not a welcome guest. This escalated so hard that Thompson was again not banned but prohibited from playing in his own capital, mostly because of random permits and law regulations. After we dive into his history, do you see how absurd this is? Zagreb has even a street named after his village. The fear wasn't about the music, it's about what the music may represent. But why? According to his supporters, it's because of the people who don't love their country, the ones who leech off government money, sell out Croatian resources to foreigners, and enrich their own families while the rest are left behind. That's why they claim he was a thorn in the side of the elite, not to the common people who face the everyday struggle. He brought people home, united them, and gave them pride. And pride and unity are dangerous, especially for those who profit of confusion and fear. Thompson was never officially banned from the Croatian media. No law banned his songs. No politician publicly declared, turn him off. Maybe a few tried, but for the most part he was simply ignored by the media compared to the other artists who sold much fewer albums. No primetime interviews, no invitation to national talk shows. The only time he was called up was when it was really necessary to appear, if this makes any sense.
Fašist, nacionalist, ustaša. Šta si ti?
Od ta tri što ste nabrojili, ja mogu kazati da sam ja hrvatski nacionalist.
As far as my knowledge goes, this all started in 1996 after praising the Ustaša regime on national TV. HRT cut his planned promotion for the album Geni Kameni. And slowly as the years went by, Thompson became a ghost in the mainstream media. Others have even tried to sabotage him. Videos have surfaced showing people disrupting his appearances, handing out caps and t-shirts with Ustaša symbols to children, accusing him of brainwashing his followers and distorting historical facts. Croatia's leading TV network, Nova TV, has also given Thompson limited exposure. They knew that Thompson stirs up emotion and controversy they don't want to attract. Despite that, he's still one of the most country's best-selling musicians. The biggest problem to them was he was simply too big and too popular to cancel him. Is Thompson this right-wing cult leader who uses his power to brainwash young people and blur the lines between historical facts, who uses emotional triggers to capture people's attention for a much darker cause than just having a following? As you know, a blind following and a radical leader could be a dangerous combination, as every time he got banned, the crowds back home got louder. As we established, he broke the world record. And there is an upcoming concert which plans to have around 500,000 of his followers. Is he truly a threat to public safety? They are already trying to cancel this historic concert, but behind these headlines, behind the bans and the controversies, who is Thompson? A propaganda icon, or just a war veteran, a father, a celebrity, or the same musician who once sang to soldiers in muddy trenches, long before he ever stepped on the stage? He raised money for war victims, donated money to hospitals, played free concerts for veterans, reunited diaspora families from Canada to Australia. Thompson said he never promoted hate, that the slogans, the salutes, they were part of history, not hate. Thompson denied being a fascist. For millions of Croats scattered across the globe, his voice wasn't just music, it was a piece of hope. Can someone be so controversial and still do good deeds? Can a man be a symbol of unity to some and a division to others? Many young Croats who listened to his music didn't grow up in the war, just like their fathers didn't grow up in the World War II. Still, they feel the weight of the hard times the Balkan went through. It's dark times, and every one of us has somebody who lost their life fighting for this little piece of heaven on earth, ruined by the government and corruption. This includes both sides. So Thompson's songs, they became like the war stories that are never told. The anthems of a country still figuring out what it wants to be. To some, he preserved Croatia's identity. To others, he trapped her in the past. Is he healing a wounded nation or reopening old scars? You don't have to like him, you don't have to agree with him, but you can't ignore him or the impact he made on the country. Marko Perković Thompson didn't just play music. We could say he built a movement, and whatever that movement stands for, patriotism, propaganda, or something else entirely, that's up to you. Your thoughts and opinions are well appreciated, and let's continue this discussion in the comment sections. I'm interested in what you think.